Well, good morning. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. Morning Report is a production of FightbackMedia.com, 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 and FightbackMediaTV.com. We trust that you are well this glorious day. It is, what is it? Wednesday? It's Wednesday. It is Wednesday, November 2nd. We're already in November. We are heading headlong into Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving weekend, and of course Black Friday sales, and Digital Monday, and all that stuff. And soon it'll be Christmas. Soon it'll be Christmas. How exciting! How exciting! It's like I like I tell you guys all the time. It's funny to be me. It's good times to be me because it's been spoken over me that I am a patient person, and I believe that. And what I have found, if you just wait, sometimes, if you just wait, things come back around, and that you can really enjoy. We're going to spend half of today's program talking about an article that I found in the Atlantic periodical by Emily Oster. You may have already heard about it. A lot of people, are hopping on the bandwagon, like Randy Weingarten, president of the NEA, one of those teachers unions. And I want to know what you think. Again, write in the comments what you think. I'll put the link for the article from the Atlantic in the description box. I really want to know what you think, because yeah, I guess the show is about what I think. Yeah, it is. But you know what? How the show is going to move forward, how this podcast moves forward, has a lot more to do with what you think than what I think. It just does. All right, so listen, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back with more of the program right after these messages. Well, hey everybody, my name is Willie Lawson, and you guys know that I do a lot of stuff on the internet. And you may think, with what's happening on Twitter and what's happening on Facebook and what happened to Parler, that the mainstream social media sources are really trying to rid themselves of conservative voices. And you'd be right. They most certainly are. But you know what? It isn't as bad as you think it is. It's worse. But there are people who are willing to be platformed for free speech. One of those places is freedomforum.website. Freedomforum.website. You can go there and speak your mind. So come join us. Enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the fun. If you are a true blue conservative, small businesses are near and dear to your heart. They are the lifeblood of our life and economy. I believe this, and that's why my florist is not a website or phone number. My florist is Bloomingdale's Flower Shop, Tampa's premier flower shop.
at 11618 North Florida Avenue here in Tampa, Florida, and at 6835 State Road 54 in Newport Richey. Call Christine at 813-933-1942 and at 727-232-6900. She can also be reached on the web at www.bloomingdays.com. One of the things that I get asked most is where can I get information that is not tainted with liberal bias, especially here in the Tampa Bay area. Well, now I have the answer. tbctampa.com, a website by and for Tampa area conservatives. Tampa's leading conservative voices speak freely at tbctampa.com, and you can too. So join the fun and enjoy the freedom at tbctampa.com. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of FightbackMedia.com, 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 and FightbackMediaTV.com. I hope you saw the show yesterday when we did the interview with my friend Jeff Dow. Just some eye-opening stuff, really encouraging stuff about the elections, and especially, in the Tampa Bay area, in the Hillsborough County area, how things are looking, and things seem to be looking pretty good. Jeff's an analyst, has an analytical mind, and has dug through the data to the degree where he is optimistic. So that makes me optimistic too. So we'll have to see what happens. There's still only 6 days. I guess next Tuesday is the general election day. So get out there and make it happen. At last count in Hillsborough County, there was only 7,000 votes, early voting votes that separated Republicans and Democrats. Now, historically, Democrats outnumber Republicans on early voting, 4-1, by an outrageous amount. But only 7,000 votes separate us now, so it's going to be close. Republicans always do better on in-person voting that day, and if that trend continues, then that red wave is actually going to happen. There'll be some surprises, some upsets in some local elections, and I'm looking forward to those. All right. This article that I found in the Atlantic, and I'm hoping, frankly, because I'm just passing this on. I'm hoping that YouTube has the stomach for this. I really do. I hope YouTube has the stomach for this. I'm pretty sure that Rumble does. Not so sure that YouTube is going to, but I'm going to give it a shot because I think it's an important view. It's an important thought, and I think we need to start thinking about these kind of things. The article on the my mouse is over here, so it was over here because I was facing that direction yesterday. Now I'm facing this direction, so all my stuff is over here in a new place. That's what I'm doing. This is an article by Emily Oster, and it's in the area of the Atlantic called Ideas. And the name of the article is "Let's Declare a Pandemic Amnesty." The byline is, "We need to forgive one another for what we did and said when we were in the dark about COVID." In April 2020, she writes, there was nothing else to do. My family took an enormous number of hikes. We all wore cloth masks that I had made myself. We had a family hand signal, which the person in front would use if someone was approaching on the trail and we needed to put on our masks. Once, when another child got too close to my then 4-year-old son on a bridge, he yelled at her, "Social distancing." These precautions were totally misguided. In April 2020, no one got coronavirus from passing someone else hiking. Outdoor transmission was vanishingly rare. Our cloth masks made out of old bandanas wouldn't have done anything anyway. But the thing is, we didn't know. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Because common sense, um, rational thought was completely tossed out of the window. The size of a virus, the opening in a cloth mask, common sense, rational thought, an adult brain. So we kind of did. I disagree with the author there. She continues. This is Emily Oster writing for The Atlantic. I have been reflecting on this lack of knowledge thanks to a class that I'm currently teaching at Brown University. This woman is teaching at Brown University on COVID. I spent several lectures reliving the first year of the pandemic, discussing the many important choices we had to make under the conditions of tremendous uncertainty. Some of these choices turned out to be better than others. To take an example close to my own work, this is what she says. There is an emerging, if not universal, consensus that schools in the US were closed for too long. The health risk of in-school spread were relatively low, whereas the cost to students' well-being and educational progress were high. The latest figures on learning loss are alarming, but in spring and summer of 2020, we had only glimmers of information. Reasonable people who cared about children and teachers, advocated on both sides of a reopening debate. Here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, our governor, said we're opening the schools because the data says that this thing, and thankfully and prayerfully, thank you, Jesus, didn't affect younger children in the same way that it affected older adults, especially adults with pre-existing conditions like obesity and diabetes and lung problems and all the crap that old people have, right? So we did know. We did. Another example she writes is when the vaccines came out, we lacked definitive data on the relative efficacies of the J&J shot versus the mRNA options from Pfizer and Moderna. The mRNA vaccines have won out, but at the time, many people in public health were either neutral or expressed a J&J preference. This misstep wasn't nefarious. It was the result of uncertainty. Now, apparently, I guess the Johnson & Johnson was closer to whatever a traditional vaccine was, and the mRNA, I've always had trouble saying that, was more of the untried technology. Not new, but untried. Obviously, some people intended to mislead and made wildly irresponsible claims. Remember when the public health community had to spend a lot of time and resources urging Americans not to inject themselves with bleach? That was bad. Misinformation was and remains a huge problem, but most errors were made by people who were working in earnest for the good of society. Now, that whole, I was alive then too, and I remember that whole inject bleach thing was media driven. What Miss Emily here, who wrote this article, doesn't put in the article that was all media driven. The president at the time said, he said in a fairly clumsy way, would it be like trying to get the disinfectant into the body somehow? He never did say that people should be injecting bleach. Never got said. So when the public health community spent a lot of time talking about and resources talking about not injecting bleach, that was something they chose to do because nobody was doing that. So given the amount of uncertainty, almost every position was taken on every topic. On every topic, someone was eventually proved right, and someone else was proved wrong. In some instances, the right people were right for the wrong reasons. And in other instances, they had a present understanding of the information, available information. The people who got it right, for whatever reason, may want to gloat. Those who got it wrong, for whatever reason, may feel defensive and retrench into a position that doesn't accord with the facts. All of this gloating and divisiveness continues to gobble up a lot of social energy and drive the cultural wars, especially on the internet. The discussions are heated, unpleasant, and ultimately unproductive in the face of so much uncertainty. Getting something right had a hefty element of luck. I disagree again. For the very same reason I disagreed a minute ago. Getting something right had a lot to do with a healthy dose of what used to be called common sense. Things that made sense and things that didn't make sense. A healthy dose of 8th grade science and the understanding of how viruses work, not how media works, and now and not how expert guesstimations work. Having an idea of how models work when compared to data. People are smart. There's a lot of smart people that were shut down. And that created all the things you're talking about. That creates the heated discussion, the unpleasantness of it, and the ultimately unproductive and ultimately unproductive because of how it was handled by public health and how it was handled by media. And similarly, getting something wrong wasn't a moral failing. Treating pandemic choices as a scorecard on which some people racked up more points than others is preventing us from moving forward. No. We can still move forward, but we have to move forward in a way that acknowledges what fact and truth and reality is. Simply ignore what was done to people. Yes, during a time of uncertainty, during a time of fear. Yes, I understand. But to ignore what was done to people is not. We shouldn't just move on like it didn't happen. And the author says this. Her name is Emily Oster. This is from the an article in the Atlantic. She continues, we have to put these fights aside and declare a pandemic amnesty. We can leave out the willful purveyors of actual misinformation while forgiving the hard calls that people had no choice to make with imperfect knowledge. Los Angeles County closed its beaches in the summer of 2020. Ex post facto, this makes no sense that my family's makes no more sense than my family's mass hiking trips. But we need to learn from our mistakes and then let them go. We need to learn from our mistakes and make sure they never happen again. We need to forgive the attacks too, because I thought schools should reopen and argued that kids as a group were not at high risk. And I was called a teacher killer, a genocide, a genocideer. It wasn't pleasant, but feelings were high, and I certainly don't need to dissect and rehash that time for the rest of my days, she writes. Understood. But when the governor of my state did that, he was called Death Santis. People like Randy Weingarten was like, he's trying to kill teachers, and he's trying to, and that wasn't from uncertainty. That was political. And what the author doesn't do is talk about the media and the political side of COVID, and especially in 2020. That's what she doesn't do. Yes, your friends and your family, people, just regular folks in your community that may have gone overboard. Yes, I still see people on the street, masked up. People who, both places where I work, some people still wear their masks. Employees and customers, or employees and guests, still wear their masks. They've got their little, little blue surgical masks. You see those all the time. Some people are still wearing their little cloth masks. I don't know whether it just makes them feel more comfortable, and if it does, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I ain't got nothing to say about it. My doctor's office still requires masks, I guess. I think, do they? I went to the doctor with my wife a couple of weeks ago, and they were optional where we went. So I'm guessing that maybe the next time I go to the doctor for myself, it'll be optional. We'll see. Yes, your neighbors, yes. I'm going to forgive my neighbors for overreacting or acting in their way. Yeah, I'm going to forgive my coworkers, my friends, my family. Yes. But media, government, no. I am not going to forgive and forget. I'm not. She continues to write, students' test scores have shown historic declines, more so in math than in reading, and more so for students who were disadvantaged off. It is disadvantaged from the start. This is something that we do not talk about. Those children from underserved communities who were in failing school systems to start with, when they had those systems closed in the name of safety, who were already behind, who in some places took a year or almost 2 years out of school, out of regular school, out of going to class, who didn't have the resources or couldn't figure out how to make it work, didn't have access to the online programs. And where I am, it's pretty much consensus from the teachers, the parents, and the students that e-learning was a complete and total cluster, that failed miserably. I talked to students, high-performing students, who hated it, who thought it was the biggest waste of time, didn't want to do it. Didn't want to do it. It's a big waste of time. I talked to teachers who didn't know what they were doing, who hated trying it. They weren't trained. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't make it work because they had never done what I'm doing right now. And now they were expected to do this, make all of this stuff like I got around me work, lighting, the whole nine, and teach. Some of them in a hybrid situation where out just beyond the camera is a class of students, and a class of students here on the camera. They hated it. And most of them say I didn't do well, and so their kids didn't learn. So it's not surprising that test scores have shown historic declines, and in math, not surprising. Emily Oster writes, we need data. We need to collect data, experiment, and invest. Is high dosage tutoring more or less cost effective than extended school years? While we have some states recovered faster than others, Florida, we should focus on questions like these, because answering them is how we will help our children recover. I don't know. What do you think? That's actually a very good question. Is high dosage tutoring, that means getting in there, finding out what the problem is, and really helping those kids come back, is that better than just extending the school year, doing more of the same over a longer period of time? And that's what some school districts are doing. They're going to a longer school year, shorter breaks, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Many people have neglected their health over the past several years, notably routine vaccination rates for kids, for measles, pertussis, etc., are way down. Rather than debating the role that messaging about COVID vaccines had in this decline, we need to put all our energy into bringing these rates back up. Pediatricians and public health officials will need to work together on community outreach, and politicians will need to consider school mandates. And I've said before, I don't, when these things happen, it should make us review how we've been doing things. Don't you think so? Should make us go back and go, yeah, I know we've been doing it this way for a long, long time. I know. And we've had some success. But is this the way to do it? Is this really the way we ought to be doing it? Maybe we should consider something else. The author, Emily Oster, finishes like this. The standard saying is that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. But dwelling on the mistakes of history can lead to a repetitive doom loop as well. Let's acknowledge that we made complicated choices in the face of deep uncertainty, and then try to work together to build back and move forward. What they want is what some of these officials want is forgiveness. Now the problem is that there is so much distrust, and the author doesn't mention this. There is so much distrust for public health officials like Anthony Fauci and Dr. Deborah Birx and the dude from CNN, the doctor there, and others. And then when you mix in the media chopping some doctors and nurses out of a public discussion, that caused more distrust. When you have platforms like YouTube shutting down accounts for medical misinformation, that creates more distrust. Indeed, this video might end up being shut down for medical information when I haven't given you any medical information at all, just data on what happened. But when you start shutting down entire sides of very important discussions in the face of uncertainty, that creates distrust. So the idea, I get what the author is trying to say. We can't stay in any one thing forever. I get it. We can't stay on one thing forever. It's not healthy. Not at all. Not at all. But on Twitter, Zuby of Zuby Music tweets in reply to Dr. Oster's tweet that goes through her article. She said, no. He says, no. People want justice and accountability. Nobody has properly acknowledged nor apologized for the immense pain, grief, and harm they caused to others. People who never wronged them at all. People want to hold folks accountable. Show me the data tweets, people hurt kids to win an election. This was intentional. They intentionally misrepresented risk. Randy Weingarten literally told the CDC, wrote the CDC policy that kept schools closed and helped garnish $190 billion in COVID relief fund for schools. This is the distrust that got built by media, by social media, by legacy media, and politicians and bureaucrats. So to simply say it's sophomoric to think that we're just going to say no harm, no foul, high five and go about life. You know, I get what the author is saying. I understand, but not until some acknowledgments are made by some really high up people. Show me the data also tweets, we shouldn't forgive those who trap children at home with their abusers. We shouldn't forgive those who lost 3 million kids because they refuse to put risk in the context. We just don't just forgive people who hurt kids for personal gain. You remember in California, not only did they close the beaches, you remember that this guy was out, and I remember this picture. This guy's on a beach all by himself, literally social distance from everybody, until he gets tackled by 2 cops. That they filled up, they put sand in the skate park. Michael Malice tweets, "You are a perceptive woman to make the plea for mercy, but hopefully there will be none to be found." Wow. Not for Kate tweets this, and we did know, those of us who have worked in pandemic planning and OSHA guidelines, we knew that the cloth mask would never stop respiratory viruses. We also knew that standing 6 feet apart would not stop aerolized viruses. This was all known. There was stuff that was known. But again, we get back to what? We get back to media, we get back to social media, we get back to the politics of it. The bureaucrats. And unfortunately, Dr. Oster, this is the stuff that's going to prevent any sort of COVID amnesty when it comes to those institutions. Everybody's going to forgive their mom. Everybody's going to forgive their brother or their sister-in-law that went too far. Everybody's going to do that. So yes, we out here are going to go on. But those who inflicted discomfort and pain by closing businesses down and the like, who had power, who had authority, they're not going to get forgiven so easily. They're just not. Social media is not going to be forgiven. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You're not. You're going to have to fess up, be accountable. Say that you overreacted. Say that you were wrong. Restore people's accounts. Remove strikes for medical misinformation when they were just relating stories and stating an opinion. You're going to have to make it good. YouTube, you're going to have to make it good. Twitter, you're going to have to make it good. Good luck, Elon. Facebook, you're going to have to make it good. ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, you're all going to have to make it good. Before there's going to be any sign of forgiveness or amnesty. Any. Politicians, you're going to have to make it good. Joe Biden, you're going to have to make it good. Bureaucrats, Anthony Fauci, Dr. Birx, you're going to have to come clean. My name is Willie Lawson. We'll be back with more of the Morning Report here on November 2nd, 2022, right after these messages.
So is it okay now, because it was, during the Trump administration, it is okay to talk about the president's
Yeah. We talked about mental health elderly, so let's talk about this guy mental health.
the president's mental acuity, because there's sometimes where it seems to be lacking. Have you seen?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's especially bad. I mean, I'm talking about sometimes it's like really bad. Like, have you seen the picture?
I was told not to take any questions.
I was told not to take any questions. They're going to be mad at me.
They're going to be mad at me.
Mr.
President, are you the president, or were you five?
You see, what I want. See, the next question is, excuse me,
I was told to call on what you call for NBC. Who's telling you to call on?
That's the question that we ought to be asking. Who's telling you this?
I mean, I don't understand why nobody won't ask that question.
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Who's telling you to call on these people in the media?
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Probably so.
All right, welcome back again. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of FightbackMedia.com, FightbackMedia.com, and FightbackMediaTV.com. Trust that you are well today. I hope this video stays up. I really do. We just talked about COVID for a half an hour. YouTube does not like that. Anyway, we'll see. In Pennsylvania, there was a massive win for election integrity. Massive win in Pennsylvania because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has ruled that undated mail-in ballots can't be counted. What's that mean? Because I see this happen. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court on yesterday sided with an argument made by Republicans in their lawsuit seeking to prevent the counting of improperly completed ballots in next week's general elections, throwing out a lower court ruling that would have allowed Pennsylvania election officials to count absentee and mail-in ballots that were not correctly dated and signed. Now think about this. You've got regulations to start with about absentee ballots, that they have to be on the right date and they have to be signed. Now, why do you have to go to court to make sure that people obey that law? These regulations you've already put in place. Pennsylvania Supreme Court justice vacated the third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decision that would have allowed the counting of ballots that were not completed as the Keystone State election laws require. So this court, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, said, hey, if they're not, screw your own laws. Don't worry about it. Just count every damn thing. I just talked about this. You wonder why there's distrust. You wonder why the conspiratorialists are out there. Because of stuff just like this. Anyway, they threw that out and ruled that the Pennsylvania County Boards of Elections are hereby ordered to refrain from counting any absentee and mail-in ballots received for the November 8th, 2022 election that are contained in undated or incorrectly dated outer envelopes. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court also, in its ruling, directed the Pennsylvania County Boards of Elections segregate and preserve any ballots contained in undated or incorrectly dated outer envelopes, and noted that the court is evenly divided on the issue of whether failing to count such ballots violates 52 U.S. Code section 101010A 2B. The RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, celebrated the win in Pennsylvania as, quote, a massive win for election integrity. This is what she tweeted. Rona tweeted, the GOP and the NRCC and the PA GOP just secured a massive election integrity win in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Supreme Court agrees with us that incorrectly or outdated mail ballots cannot be counted in next week's election. Republicans went to court. Now Democrats have to follow the law. Again, if there was a question that you had these laws in place about incorrectly dated or not signed ballots, it should have never had to go on the court for you to follow the laws that you are and regulations that you've already come up with. And you shouldn't be angry about it. Democrats shouldn't be angry about it. They are, though. She writes this, Rona. This ruling is a massive victory for Pennsylvania voters and the rule of law. Following an NRCC and Pennsylvania GOP lawsuit, Pennsylvania Supreme Court has made it clear that incorrectly dated and outdated mail ballots, undated mail ballots cannot be counted. Republicans went to court. Now Democrats and all counties have to follow the law. This is a milestone in Republicans' ongoing efforts to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat in Pennsylvania and nationwide. If Pennsylvania was even thinking about counting undated or incorrectly dated ballots, you can't be amazed that people are distrusting this whole process. It's crazy, outlandish. At the time the lawsuit was filed, to ensure only mail ballots filled out in accordance with the Pennsylvania election laws were counted, a joint statement from Rona McDaniel and Tim Emmer and Pennsylvania GOP Chairman Lawrence Tabas noted that as the Pennsylvania legislature and U.S. Supreme Court have made clear, undated mail-in ballots should not be counted, and pledge that Republicans are holding Pennsylvania Democrats accountable for their brazen defiance of the Supreme Court and the rules duly set by the legislature. Pennsylvania Democrats have a history of election integrity failures, and Pennsylvanians deserve better, the joint statement continued. This lawsuit is the latest step in Republicans' efforts to promote free, fair, and transparent elections in the Keystone State. And now their argument has won in the Pennsylvania's highest courts. Here's what it should be. Pennsylvania law requires that a voter who uses an absentee or mail-in ballot, quote, shall fill out, date, and sign the declaration printed on the outer envelope of the ballot. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has previously upheld that law, ruling any absentee or mail-in ballot that does not comply with the law, quote, is invalid and cannot be counted in any election after the 2020 general election. So they counted ballots that broke their own laws in 2020? Is that what you're saying? Now I know. Now I'm not talking about Dominion. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about ballot harvesting. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. So Pennsylvania in 2016 and in 2020 and 2018 and before that, you actually counted ballots that didn't meet the muster of your own law, and you wonder why people don't trust you. It's crazy. That's what it's all about. All right, folks. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. And I'm just wondering how long this video is going to stay up on YouTube. If you're watching on Rumble, I'll let you know. until we see you again. Go out there, learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. My name is Willie Lawson. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.